It's often been said that radical feminism, or social justice, or wokeism, or leftism in general is a religion. In fact, it's been said so often it's almost become a meme at this point. But how true do you think the statement actually is? Well, wokeism does contain the mechanistic aspects of a religious faith. It has symbols that one can proudly wear or display, packed full of meaning for any believer who sees them. It has patron saints, people whose tragic life stories or heroic actions teach us about the world and humanity. It has rituals that are akin to religious services, including reciting passages and body performance. And people are really leaning into this stuff unironically, all on their own. What if the period between June 19th and July 4th were to become an annual 16-day season of remembrance and renewal, an honest accounting of the unfulfilled promise of liberty and equality, a call to repentance, and recommitment to spur our nation to live up to its ideals? So you're basically describing Lent or Ramadan for leftists then. Hell, it's even got a tithe! So I found out that my coworker has been selling gay indulgences, and honestly, what a fucking genius she is. Her best friend loves Chick-fil-A and always feels guilty about it. So Steph just told her once, listen, if you eat there, send me $20 and all is forgiven. And she did it, and she's still doing it. We're working and Steph gets a notification and just goes, oh, Elle just sent me the lesbian forgiveness tax for Chick-fil-A, and I went, what? All straight people who have ever eaten at Chick-fil-A cash app a queer person $20 immediately. It's not just queer people, though. Black activists, fat activists, wokeists of all types regularly hold seminars where people pay for the privilege of getting lectured at about how oppressive they are. I guess capitalism's good if you're the one making the money. And of course, there's the holy texts. Can't forget about those. From the economic stuff like Marx's work or the cultural stuff like Robin DiAngelo, they're all treated like a Bible by these leftoids. They all contain vague, flowery language with a wide variety of interpretations. They all contain failed predictions about the future of society. They've all inspired rival factions to claim to have the real interpretation of the scripture. And these factions regularly fight each other for dominance. They're all treated as the infallible truth by privileged, self-righteous white people. And non-believers, especially non-believers that aren't white, need to be educated and converted. They've even got their own religious celebrations. And you know what? For a little bit, just a little bit there, this might have actually been reasonable before they overreached, as they always do. For a while, we had Pride Day, otherwise known as Stonewall Day, on the last Saturday of June in remembrance of the Stonewall riots. The TLDR on Stonewall is, on Saturday, June 28th, 1969, the New York Police's Public Morality Squad raided the Stonewall Inn, a popular gay bar, on the grounds of public indecency. As the cops began to arrest people, a lesbian woman was being thrown in the back of a police wagon, having done nothing other than simply being there and being lesbian. And her cry of, "Why don't you guys do something?" sparked the riot. The cops were massively outmanned, but didn't expect gay people to fight back because gay people were viewed as stereotypically effeminate. And the subsequent riot saw widespread property damage and the cops having the shit kicked out of them. This riot began the modern gay rights movement. And within months, thousands of gay advocacy groups began opening across the United States. At the first year anniversary of Stonewall, it was celebrated by a parade and a demonstration. So yeah, it's not hard to see how such an event can be turned into a yearly holiday. And it's also not hard to see how that can be spun into a religious context. But soon enough, we had Pride Week instead of just Pride. And alright, the Stonewall riots lasted nearly a week, so I kind of understand. But then at some point it became Pride Month. I know that this officially started happening around 1999, but people only really started hardcore celebrating it, like the whole month, around 7 or 8 years ago. At that time, the entire month of June became rainbow-coded. You see flags everywhere, parades all over. Every corporation changes their avatar to the Pride variant, unless they're in the Middle East anyway. And the question remains, why a whole month? The only answer I can think of is because it's become a competition to compete with February's Black History Month. And then it became 2 months. October is now LGBT History Month. It's LGBT Pride in June and LGBT History in October. Okay, I got it. But not to be outdone, the black advocates have began to call for a Black History Year. That's right, fuck your 2 months, gays. The blacks are gonna have all 12 of them. The backlash against critical race theory has now become a crusade to delete blackness from the national story. Young people deserve to know the complete American history, this month and the 11 others. No, you fucking moron. The backlash against CRT isn't about anti-black racism, it's about opposing anti-white racism. This article begins by describing a clash between an elementary school counselor describing how parents would be able to opt their students out of some garbage equity lessons, and the county's superintendent saying that parents, in fact, cannot opt their kids out of the garbage equity lessons. The article then goes on to say, none of us should be able to select which parts of history students learn so as to guard our political or cultural sensibilities. However, the Sprunica Elementary story comes amid an ongoing public and political crusade by conservative politicians, voters, and media figures against the teaching of black black history during this month and the 11 others. Notice the capital B being used here. This isn't about the history of black individuals and the events that they were involved in. Capital B black is a political distinction. This is called political blackness, and it's how you can be both black and not black at the same time.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
If you're a black person, you're lowercase b black. If you've got the right progressive intersectional race politics, you're uppercase B black. You're politically black. It doesn't matter about Biden's past history of racism during an era where maybe it was a bit more acceptable, because capital B black isn't about the black race or black people. It's about the black ideology. The battle over what conservatives mislabel as critical race theory has been raging across the country ever since the summer of 2020, coming in the wake of the global uprising following George Floyd's murder. The politically conservative rebuke to an all too brief uptick in interest about black lives and anti-racism has been a campaign aimed at deleting blackness from the national story. No, you fucking morons. The backlash to CRT has been because it's fucking racist. It's because you went back to a pre-Jim Crow mentality of segregating kids in schools because black people need a black space or whatever the fuck. It's literally just colored water fountains all over again, but the sign reads people of color water fountains instead. You guys are fucking racists. Alright, we're getting a little bit off track here. The point I'm making is, capital B black is politically black. It's an ideology with rituals and rules, and it's a component of the larger wokest religion. And I do think it qualifies as a religion. Rousseau, in his book On the Social Contract, coined the term civil religion. As he describes it, a civil religion is a belief system that helps to unify the state by providing it with a sacred source of its authority. In Rousseau's view, this is why political leaders often appeal to God or more organized forms of religion as not only a source of their personal morality, but also as a source of a guidance for their decisions in the management of the state. Many of the mechanisms of patriotism simultaneously appeal to the authority of organized religion while also fulfilling the ritualistic requirements of the civil religion. For example, when a crowd at a public gathering begins to sing a nation's national anthem, that is a show of patriotism, and it's a ritual of the civil religion. But at the same time, most national anthems have an appeal to God in their lyrics, or the main organized religion of the country. The same thing with patriotic displays on national holidays, or oaths of allegiance or solemn vows in a courtroom, or ceremonies to inaugurate a new ruler, or the various monuments commemorating great leaders or dead soldiers, or icons of the state and its values. All of these rituals are secular, but use the language and appearance of religion, not to make a statement about the divine, but to impress upon people the sanctity of the society in which they live. So when people say, wokeism is a religion, that's not just a pithy atheist remark about the close-mindedness of progressives. Wokeism actually fits the bill of a civil religion, not one in service of a currently existing state like Americanism is, for example. Rather, progressive ideology is a civil religion in service of a potential future revolutionary socialist society, one which they want to create. And part of building the dual power structures that Lenin talked about as a prerequisite for being able to overthrow a current power structure is the creation of a social counter-hegemony to challenge the current liberal capitalist social orthodoxy, which is what Gramsci wrote about in the prison notebooks. Progressive ideology as a civil religion is a step in the direction of socialist subversion. Wokeism's religious aspect should be clear by now. Its heavy focus on guilt, where the only carrot is the hope of redemption, a hope that is increasingly more slim during these cancel culture days. Its strong dogmatism, where humor becomes suspicious as it signifies a lack of seriousness. Its divisive moralism, where there's no room for fence-sitting or neutral ground. Its ritualistic conformity, where you must publicly and actively show your belief in the form of virtue signaling. Its enabling of a strong personal zealotry. You know those stories of families being ripped apart when a person becomes a born-again Christian and their newfound extremism drives others away? Well, we see that with college students coming home from the summer with their purple hair, too. But it's also important to notice what functions that the wokest religion serves as well. One, it creates a public-facing identity. I'm BLM or I'm LGBT serves the same function as wearing a crucifix. It immediately identifies you to fellow believers and becomes a part of your identity. Two, it creates a holier-than-thou attitude. In Germany, the collective guilt post-World War II created an interesting concept called guilt pride. The Germans felt that if they properly adopted their guilt and defined themselves by it, they could take pride in being morally superior. As their guilt is larger than everyone else's, so is their burden of carrying it. That social justice-y, I'm better than you attitude.
Am I saying that I'm better than you? I guess I'm going a little further than you are. Yeah, I'm fucking better than you. Okay? Much better than you. You are garbage.
Yes, that, thanks Anna, is based in an American adaptation of guilt pride, that adopting the sins of our ancestors in terms of slavery and segregation provides us a moral high ground. And 3, it also creates a new form of manifest destiny. The leftist is guided by a missionary zeal to convert the whole world to his politics, like a Christian or a Muslim might be to convert the whole world to his religion. This is why socialists require a worldwide workers' revolution, and it's not real socialism if somebody else somewhere else isn't doing it. In this way, socialism is a totalitarian ideology, and social justice or wokeism or progressivism or whatever you want to call it is the civil religion that people on the left believe in, using it as a tool to move towards their ultimate political goals. Of all of these terms, social justice, progressivism, wokeism, I prefer wokeism. It's got an appropriately religious connotation, the idea of awakening, the scales falling from your eyes. But like any religion, civil or otherwise, it has serious problems. Christianity may preach about love and peace, but we can find atrocities committed in the name of Christ. Americanism may preach about liberty and freedom, but we can also find similar atrocities. You might say that's not really about Christianity, or that wasn't really American, but I find those arguments as convincing as it wasn't real socialism. Christianity didn't invent love and peace. America didn't invent freedom and liberty. Both ideologies co-opted those values. Sometimes they embody those values well, and following the tenets of the ideology helped achieve the virtues effectively. And sometimes they didn't embody the values well, and there was no virtue to be found there. Can the same claim be made about wokeism? Does wokeism embody the values of equality and justice? I mean, yeah. Did it invent them? No. Did it co-opt them? Yes. Does it embody them poorly sometimes, such that there is no virtue? Absolutely. But does it sometimes embody them well? That's the million-dollar question. Does wokeism sometimes embody the values of justice and equality well? I'm not sure that it does. Racial justice, social justice, is not true justice, because there's nothing just about taking from somebody solely because of their race or gender or sexuality, even if it's to right a historical wrong where none of the original aggrieved parties are still alive. And chasing equality is a fool's game, because inequality is a result of freedom. If people are free, that means they're free to compete. And when some people do better than other people, inequality is the result. A forced equality doesn't mean that the 75 IQ dullard is raised to the level of the 150 IQ genius. It means that the 150 IQ genius is held back to the level of the 75 IQ dullard. This is why redistribution always slows production, because people who are high producers don't like it when what is rightfully theirs is taken from them to be given to those who can't keep up. The value of equality is pushed by people who are trying to solve a specific problem. The problem being, how do you help those who need help through no fault of their own? And a far better value to solve this problem is fairness, and there is no fairness found in wokeism. So my answer is ultimately no. Wokeism does not embody the value of justice, and while it does embody the value of equality, equality is a substandard value, and you're better off going with the liberals' value of fairness instead. So what does this all mean? Well, social justice, or feminism, or wokeism, or progressivism, or leftism, it does function like a religion. The memes are accurate, but it's a civil religion. It's got its holy texts, its gods, its saints, its Satan, its heaven and hell. It's got its rituals and its statements of faith. It's got its dogmatism, its closed-mindedness, and its expansionism. When a leftoid demands that you comply with whatever it is, sloganeering, pronouns, proper politics, whatever, they're asking you for submission in the same way that a religious person would submit to God. And if you display to them that you might not actually believe in their religion, they will show you the intolerance that they embody when dealing with any infidel. Understanding these facts will show you why these people are so hard to reason with, why they reject good faith conversation, and they close their eyes to well-constructed arguments against their position. They're operating on fanaticism, not critical thinking, as much as they may appeal to the latter. Where does this all leave us? I'm not sure myself. All I know is I find arguments for belief in organized religion lacking, and for the same reason, I find the wokest arguments just as lacking. I understand the purpose of civil religion, and though I'm not exactly a die-hard believer in Canada's, I do like Canada, I do like Canadian values, and want to see them continue into the future. But the wokest civil religion exists only to toss rose petals onto the advancing path of socialism. This is why I don't believe that any woke capitalists or woke liberals are, in fact, liberals. Best case scenario is they're useful idiots for the socialists. More likely, they're just socialist subversives themselves, who are advocating for change not because they think it's good in itself, but because it serves as a stepping stone towards revolution.